Getting older, it can suck, but it doesn't have to suck. We're going to talk about 5 proven ways by studies and data that actually slow down the aging process. Again, they're proven. Let's get into it.
I feel this is prompted from our gray hair conversation.
Yeah, no.
Getting old rules,
that we were all
I need to reframe this.
Let me list all 5 first, then we'll break them down, just so people know what we're going to talk about. Here are the 5 ways that the data shows are the most effective ways to slow down aging. Strength training, calorie restriction, eating things like omega-3s, grass-fed beef, fiber, taking naps, and mindfulness or prayer. All right, let's get into all of them and the studies and data that shows why. Now, I first think what I want to do is kind of paint the context, okay? There's biological aging, which you can measure through certain markers, right? Now, we don't have this perfect.
Yeah, telomeres and stuff like that.
It's not perfect, but there are some markers that are pretty good, right? Like telomeres, which is, or meres, I don't know how you pronounce it right, which is an enzyme produced by the body that'll go up or down depending on how quickly you're aging. Telomere length or shortening. You have other markers like inflammatory markers, hormone markers, insulin sensitivity. Mitochondrial dysfunction or function. So that's all biological. But then you have like the perceived dysfunction that, or should I say the general dysfunction that we would attribute to aging, right? Lack of strength, lack of mobility, lack of energy, stiffness, bones not as strong, maybe cognitive decline, like all the things that if we were to kind of generally say, like what happens, what are the bad things that happen to you as you get older? Those are things that, we would typically list. And so
sure,
the things that we're going to talk about have been shown in studies to reduce the markers of biological aging, but also have been shown to improve the symptoms associated with aging. That's why number 1 is strength training.
I was just going to ask you, what would you say is better, the improving the symptoms or the markers that we currently have that tell you whether you're getting older or not?
Symptoms are, because that's what you're feeling.
Yeah,
right.
That's more relevant to your individual experience.
Who cares if your biomarkers look great if you feel like crap?
Right.
Which I don't know if that's ever the case. Maybe, because again, we don't have this like perfect way of measuring aging. From a biological
I care
standpoint.
most about my real age score.
Yeah, right. Exactly. It's so funny. I have a cousin who sent everybody his biological age score because he was like, "Oh, I'm so much younger than my age," and we all know him because he's our cousin, and he
looks the oldest.
He's not just looks the oldest. He's for sure the oldest. Like mobility, like everything, like most tired,
Guys,
most whatever.
I'm like 29.
So I'm like, I don't care what your score says, bro. You're gonna do well. But strength training's at the top because it does all of the stuff. Yeah. Okay. So as you get older, you can lose strength, you can lose mobility, you can lose balance.
Lose ability.
Your bones can weaken, your hormones can change, your insulin sensitivity gets worse, you lose energy, all that's cognitive function declines. Strength training of all the forms of exercise is the best. I'm not saying that's the only thing you should do, by the way,
promotes the best youthful profile.
It does. So if you were to pick one form, and that's all you had to do, which is not ideal. Ideally, you do multiple forms of exercise, okay? But if you had to pick one that would slow down the aging process the most from all the markers and the symptoms, it's strength training. It just is. I mean,
it also has the greatest ROI on the other 4 things that you listed on.
Yeah, so you don't need to do a lot of it.
Right. For what you get on return, for the amount of time invested in doing it, it even surpasses the other 4 things that you talk about.
1 or 2 days a week of strength training is profound in its effects when it comes to slowing it. In fact, in my career as a trainer, I had a lot of clients that would be considered, it's so funny, we were in Vegas talking to the clients of our trainers. We now have trainers. We now have trainers who coach and work with clients, some of them virtual. And one of them came up to me. She's in her 70s, wonderful woman. Yeah. And she goes, I hate it when you refer to people in my age group as advanced age. Call them something else. That's just the term that was used in our space, right? When you get your certifications, it's a category. But I had a lot of clients. A majority of my clients were over the age of 55. In fact, most of them were over the age of 60. And they all lifted weights once a week. Like maybe one of them that I can think of off the top of my head did more than that. Everybody else was once a week, and they were active throughout the rest of the week. So it was like they didn't exercise.
Doug was a couple.
Doug was he was in his 40s when I trained.
Oh,
yeah,
in the 60s. Right?
Yeah, no. Yeah, sorry, Doug. We always got to do the age jokes. It helps when people meet you. They're like, "Oh my god, he looks amazing."
He looks amazing for 85.
For how the guys talk about you, he's not 85. But they all lifted once a week, and the difference was, one of the big things that you'll hear about as people get older is their balance is off. And we tend to think that balance is, and it is this, but this isn't what's happening when you're getting older. We think that your vestibular system, your inner ear, like, you're losing your balance because your way of managing balance and your brain is getting worse. That's not what's happening for a majority of people as they get older. No. They're losing balance because they're weaker.
Yep.
When you're weaker, you're just not as strong and stable.
Well, and your body is pruning off things that you're not challenging and using.
That's right.
So if you don't challenge stability, strength, movements out of these that are uncommon, then when the body has to move in this uncommon way or out of it, you're weak. And the body said, we don't need this anymore because you stopped doing it. Therefore, it's interesting that is that what we tend to do is try and pin it on something going on in the brain that there's like, because there obviously is something there, but it really has more to do with that.
I remember having this discussion with one of the best physical therapists that I've ever met in my entire life. I've talked about her before. She worked in my studio. We had this conversation because she also had clients in this age group, and what she would do is balance exercises, which are great. There's nothing wrong with them. But I remember talking to her and saying, you'll get more bang for your buck if you just get them strong. Mm-hmm. And we had this whole discussion. And now the reason why she did that is because physical therapists are so correctional exercise focused. They're not strength training focused necessarily. Right. And I remember her going, like, one of the few things I taught her, because most of the stuff she taught me was one of the few things that she took from me was like, let's just get them strong. Mm-hmm. And that's what happened to my clients. Like, I just got them strong and their balance went through the roof because they were stronger. I didn't have to focus on balancing as much. It was just, let's build strength.
This is something, I mean, I've been talking with my dad. He just had knee replacements, and he's 6'7", and he's a big guy, and he's old, and it's like, his balance is off and all this stuff, and started to kind of use a cane. I'm like, you can't use the cane.
Oh God.
The cane is the
beginning
pathway
of the
to
beginning
the
of the
spiral.
End.
Yeah, it's the beginning of the end. And so, it's just been work, but I mean, just to really refocus and prioritize strength training and how we introduce that and do it appropriately with the right amount of dose, like, and it's already making a big difference. But I mean, that is such like a common theme. It's like, let's just go to the cane. Let's just get stability somewhere.
If you had to pick an organ of the body that was the organ of youth, it's muscle. Muscle is what keeps you young more than any other organ in the body. Keep your muscle healthy and you're going to age slower. That's just a fact.
And someone would try and make the argument that the heart is that, but by proxy, if you work on the muscle, the heart is going to get
healthy
stronger.
Muscle tends to equal a healthy heart. It's more complex than that. Diet comes into play and all those other things, right? Lifestyle. But yeah, healthy muscle contributes to healthy heart, and the studies on this are pretty clear as well.
I think that's an important thing for us to discuss in this conversation, because the typical default from either a general practitioner or just the average person will go, this is why I need to do cardio or do a little bit of aerobic exercise because I need to strengthen my heart, because the heart is the most important. The difference is you can strengthen your heart and all the rest of your muscles on your body get weaker and atrophy still. Whereas if you strengthen the muscles support on your entire body, you will get some benefits and carry over to the heart.
There's more carryover.
That's right.
Yeah, and time for time, it's the most useful use of your time. But you should do both. That's
right,
ideal.
And that's what I'm glad you said that, because my point of that is not saying like, don't do any cardio, you should just lift weights. But the point is, if I had my dad and I only had one choice, he's only
have 1 hour a week with him.
Exactly. And I'm going to get him strength training because I'm going to get some of the heart benefits from that, in addition to all the other benefits that come from building muscle.
It's funny too, when you look at the studies on bone weakening in women, right? Osteoporosis more common in women. When they have female participants who do aerobic or cardiovascular exercise regularly, their lower body bone density obviously maintains better than the average person who doesn't do anything. But their upper body bone density still declines because it's only on the lower body. And it's not as effective as strength training, even for the lower body. Strength training, you build muscle, you build bone. You want strong bones for the rest of your life, stay strong. And again, muscle is the organ of youth. So keep it. And by the way, studies on people in their 70s and 80s who do consistent exercise shows that they have muscles that if you were to analyze them in a lab, you almost couldn't tell the difference between them and a 20-something-year-old. So that's how awesome it is to do strength training. Next is calorie restriction. This one's interesting. Now, people take this too far,
Right.
where they see the studies on animals and like, oh my God, these rodents or fruit flies lived 30% longer because they were on calorie restricted diets. And here's why it goes too far. If you go calorie restrict too far, you can become weak and brittle. Okay, so if you eat too little, you're also weak, and that could cause lots of problems. Right. That being said, I think to put this more accurately, calorie restriction, I'd like to say it like this: don't overeat.
Yeah.
Overeating is a fast way to aging.
I feel like I like that even better than even saying calorie restrictions.
Yes, yeah. Calorie restriction is what the data
because you very easily can tip into the too much too fast, especially in the context of our experience of training the average person who is also trying to do the first step, which is lift weights, almost always underconsumes protein. Right. Yeah. And that's one of the most essential things that you could eat for the building blocks of.
I'm so glad you said that, Adam, because here's what the studies show. When they do the studies on calorie restriction, it's a 10 to 15% reduction in calories. Okay, it's not a ton, but it's consistent. Do you know how you can get a natural 10 to 15% reduction in calories? Eat a high protein diet, eat it first.
Right.
So your protein is high, calories naturally drop. Now you're doing both.
Right. And you're hitting the thing that is going to complement
strengthen your body.
The first one's so
right.
important. And if you neglect to do that, and this is so important, because if you go, okay, I got it, and so then you start doing things like fasting and really calorie restricting because you hear the studies and the benefits, and you're also doing the strength training, you don't even get to really reap the full benefits of the strength training because you're not hitting your protein intake.
That's
so
right.
And then that compounds if you actually do that. So if you take the advice you just said, which is instead of looking at it like calorie restriction, just eat a high protein diet, prioritize protein, the calories will naturally probably balance themselves that way, while also strength training. Now the effects are compound.
100%. And then just to hammer this home, when you look at the data on mortality, people who are older, so let's say over the age of 70, the people with the highest mortality risk are people who are severely underweight or underweight. Underweight is worse than being a little overweight when you're older. Not obese, but being a little overweight's better than being a little underweight when it comes to mortality. Why? You get sick or you're in the hospital and you're a little underweight.
A lot more susceptible.
That's when things really start to fall apart. So it's really more accurately, don't overeat, and don't overeat consistently. That'll make you age slower. Next is omega-3s, grass-fed beef, and fiber. So omega-3s and grass-fed beef, I'll put in the same category. Now here's why I said grass-fed beef. If you eat a lot of beef, it makes a difference to make sure that your beef is grass-fed and grass-finished, because the fatty acid profile is better. So really it's connected to the omega-3 tip. Now, why omega-3? Because our fatty acid profile in Western societies is so off that it's pro-inflammatory. Yeah. We have this terrible ratio of omega-6s and 9s to 3s. And what it does is just produces more inflammation in the body, which more than is necessary or appropriate, which accelerates the aging process. Foods that are high in omega-3s, or second best, not as good, but second best, is supplementing with omega-3s to balance that out, which reduces the oxidative damage and inflammatory process that can contribute, or that does contribute to accelerated aging. Fiber is another one. And I love talking about fiber because you this carnivore diet group of people, which I'm going to say first, there's a very, very small percentage of people that a carnivore diet is going to be good for. These are the people who are hyperimmune response for whatever reason, Michaela Peterson types, where they eat, for whatever reason, their body's super reactive to almost anything. So it's best to avoid almost everything, or everything except for meat. And you can get away with meat because it's so nutrient dense. But what they'll often do is make this argument that fiber has no benefits, which is crazy. Fiber has some of the most literature of anything in diet to show benefit.
Yeah.
Fiber is beneficial for digestion, beneficial for your microbiome in ways that we now know are beneficial for slowing down the aging process, reducing the risk of disease. Fiber helps with insulin sensitivity. Fiber is good for you. It's good to eat a good amount of fiber. And in the studies on diets that tend to show, benefits in terms of aging, they tend to be higher and fiber. So omega-3 grass-fed beef, if you eat a lot of beef, and fiber, which takes us to naps. This is pretty cool. Have you guys seen the studies on naps?
A little bit, but not a lot. And this one's interesting to me.
Yes. So I'll read you some of the studies.
Okay, while you're getting into it, I have a theory on why this from a study perspective gets so praised so much. I think it has less to do with taking naps and more to do with how much as a population we neglect sleep.
Yeah.
That's my
I
theory.
think that too, and as we age, and I've noticed this with my grandparents, and and they've even mentioned it, that it's been a lot. Like they go to bed a bit later and get up really early, so their window kind of changes in terms of the amount of sleep they get.
Sleep quality gets worse as you age. That's a fact. It's an absolute fact that happens. So that may be the case, Adam. In fact, there was a study that was done because I thought one reason why sometimes people avoid napping is that it might disrupt their evening sleep. And what they found in older individuals was it didn't.
Interesting.
It did not disrupt their evening sleep. So it just contributed to getting better sleep. Or more sleep. Now, the studies show that short, regular daytime naps between 5 to 30 minutes. So you're not napping for an hour or two.
No, it's very short.
You're napping for
Power
20
naps.
to 30 minutes.
And anybody who's ever experienced this knows this. Like you once you cross over that, like,
Yeah, you get to 45 minutes to an hour,
oh,
and you wake up
it's
and
the worst.
Oh,
you feel worse.
The rest of the day
Yeah,
sucks.
but whereas sometimes I just did this while we were up in Truckee, because this is a place when I feel like I can do this, where we get up early, we go to the lake, we're active, stuff like that. And like midday, I'm like, man, I'm tired. I'm going to take a nap, and I'll lay down. And it's like, it's so fast, it almost feel like I didn't sleep.
Yeah, you feel like you were awake the whole time.
Yes, but I know I slept because the time went by and I went, oh, wow, I slept probably 20, 30 minutes real quick. And then I feel so refreshed.
So here's what the data shows, and this is just a summary of it. By the way, the strongest evidence comes from, there's a UK Biobank study. It linked habitual napping, those short naps, to brain volume equivalent to 2.6 to 6.5 years younger.
Wow.
So when people did this, their brains looked younger than their actual age.
What a trip.
That's right. Moderate napping is also correlated with slower cognitive decline and biological age acceleration in longitudinal studies. These are studies of like thousands and thousands of people. Now, here's the other side of it. Excessive long naps probably signifies that you have some health issues. Mm-hmm. And so somebody's like, oh my God, I need a 2-hour nap every day.
Yeah.
There's something going on that we need to look at. But the short naps, 20 to 30, that's mine, 20 minutes. And I'll often tell my wife this. I'll say, I'm going to go take a nap for 20 minutes. I'll set my alarm. I'll come back and I'm like a new person.
So do you think, though, that, to my point, that it has more to do with what you're lacking in your night's rest than it has with this is some sort of a hack?
I think it's both.
Like if somebody was getting 8 hours of full great rest every single night, I imagine they're getting little benefit to these naps. Or do you think that person still experiences the same benefit as the person who is only getting 6 hours and then they're also at least taking this nap?
So they've done studies on both, and they both benefit.
Okay.
Yeah. So everybody benefits from a 15.
Even
20
somebody well rested.
That's right.
Interesting.
That's right. In fact, it's. I could say this right now, and I bet you 80% of the people listening would be like, "Oh yeah, we all get that dip of energy right around 2, 3 p.m. What we typically do is reach for caffeine to get us up, when a 20-minute nap would be perfect and would require no drugs, no caffeine, just to make us feel better. And then lastly is mindfulness or prayer. This one's one of my favorite ones. I'll pull up some studies for you guys, which is pretty remarkable. There was a cross-sectional study that analyzed over 1,200 adults between the ages of 40 to 80. What they found, this was the National Health and Nutrition Examination Survey, and they were looking for links between religious practices and telomere length. Frequent prayer was strongly associated with longer telomeres, particularly in women and older adults. The effect was partially mediated by social support and lower stress, so suggested that prayer's benefits might also come from emotional regulation, community engagement. Telomere length was approximately 5% longer in frequent prayers compared to non-prayers, which is equivalent to about 1 to 2 years of slower aging. Now, mindfulness is the other side of it. So mindfulness is like meditation, stuff like that. And they found that it also does the same thing, increases telomere activity, reduces stress, cortisol levels. You get improved insulin sensitivity. Like it's no longer the woo-woo. Like we have lots of studies that support. I mean, it's better memory, executive function, scores, slower cognitive decline.
I think there's a deeper root connection there. I've been thinking about this a lot too. I just listened to a really cool conversation with Chris Williamson and Alex Hormozy, and they were talking about this interesting phenomenon that we do as humans, where let's say you're having what you would consider a bad year of your life or a bad season of your life, and then you unpack that. Like, what does that mean? And really, what it is, it's a collection, and normally a small collection, one-time moments where something negative happened.
Yeah,
but then you catastrophize it as this massive time frame. When it was like those were 4
little blips
in a period of this time, but you've chosen to focus so much on it and allow it to be this big problem. So if this is true, then the inverse should be too. Can I not take these small positive moments that have happened, probably in the same exact time frame, and reframe that time of my life and go, it really isn't a bad time of my life. In fact, I've had several significantly more positive things. And so I think mindfulness and prayer hacks into that. I think mindfulness and prayer or gratitude practices stop you for a moment, because it's very easy. We're wired this way. Bad thing happens, freak out, all the negative, all
your focus goes
all
there.
the focus goes there because we're wired that way. So it takes you actively going, wait a second, I'm okay. I'm not going to die. There's no lying or whether that. Yeah, sure. I lost the job. Yeah, sure. Got in a huge fight with but at the end of the day, this also happened, and this happened, and this also happened, and it's like, and I'm healthy, and I'm alive, and I got somebody who loves me.
We are.
Fear doesn't prevent death.
Right.
Yeah. And we are negatively inclined. And we are take for granted machines.
Yes,
we really are.
We are.
My dad used to tell me this all the time. So my father was a poor Sicilian immigrant, very poor. Okay, he had to leave school to work at 9. That's how poor they were as a family. And he used to tell me this all the time. Like, man, you have no idea the blessings that you have. And I didn't get it as a kid. I just never understood. I think this is why sometimes when people travel, or they go volunteer, they come back happier.
New perspective.
It changes your perspective, because how often do you turn on your water faucet and go, man, I'm so grateful.
I know.
Yeah,
I got
your
water.
outlook creates your reality.
Instead, here's what
you
happens.
experience.
Or you just turn on the light switch. Instead, this is what happens. Your power goes out once a year. Life sucks.
Yeah.
Rather than 364 days this year, I wanted electricity and I had it just at the fingertip.
Yeah.
There's a comedian that does this bit where he talks about how people were complaining that their Wi-Fi wasn't working on the airplane. And he's like, you are traveling through the sky.
You're on an airplane of the gods
to Hawaii, and you can't, get on Instagram for 10 minutes,
Ooh, yeah.
But it requires practice.
Yes.
Because if you allow your body, your brain to naturally do what it does, it is going to go to the negative. It won't go to the positive.
So this is my point.
Yep.
I agree.
Of the unpacking the prayer and the mindfulness thing, or you throw in gratitude practice in there, is I think if you literally, speaking again, Alex Hormozy, his most viral tweet was, he said, the greatest superpower, I'm going to probably bastardize this a little bit, so forgive me, but it's like the greatest superpower is the ability to be grateful in moments when there's nothing to be grateful about.
Yeah.
And so, and I think the reason why it probably went so viral is because there is so much truth in that statement, is like that ability, again, reframing and being positive in when there's nothing to be positive about has so much power. Maybe one of the most powerful things you could ever learn to do. And so I think prayer, mindfulness, all those things give you a glimpse of what that,
and it has to be a practice.
The only reason you feel that there's nothing to be grateful for because you haven't trained yourself how to do that.
It made me think, did you share on the podcast? I don't know if you did. I know you did with me privately. I don't know if you share publicly on the podcast, but I just think it goes right in line with this conversation. I think it's so important for all of us. Is you began to you stopped with the 5 things of gratitude at the end of the night, and you have now throughout the day like force yourself. And I just think that
because my gratitude, my prayers started becoming.
Did we talk about that publicly, or was that just me and you?
I don't know if we talked about it.
I just think it's if we didn't, or if we did, I apologize for us having this again, but it's on my mind a lot. I think it's really powerful. I think it's an incredible hack. I don't know if you got that from somebody else or
what happened was you always hear gratitude practice. So I knew the value of it, but the problem was my prayers started to sound generic.
Same thing, same 5.
Yeah, like, hey, thank you for my family.
Yes.
Thank you for my health. Thank you for, it's like every day. And I was missing the daily small things that
Yes.
I could be grateful for. And so what I started to do, actually set alarms for a little while, was every other hour, a little alarm would go off and I'd be like, all right, what just happened that I'm grateful for? And I started finding myself grateful for like
Random little stuff.
I'm grateful for the joke that Justin told me earlier. Oh my God, that was so funny. I'm so grateful I went for a walk and it was sunny. Sounds silly, but
No.
it changes your brain
So
totally.
unbelievably powerful.
Yes.
And I think that I think gratitude practices have been become so popular and everybody talks about it. And there's really like two camps. You have people that like have bought into it and like, oh my God, life changing. The other people are like, oh, it's a bunch of bullshit.
Yeah.
And I think where the bunch of bullshit comes from is from people, and I can attest to this personally myself, of doing the exact same thing where it's like, okay, I've really implemented that for a while and been like, I'm even to write it down, the 5. And the same thing happened to me. I'm like, well, this is lame. Yeah. I'm writing the same 5 things.
Yeah.
And it's not that I'm not any more or less grateful for those things because I am writing them or not writing them down anymore. But what I failed to do was was like, how about like look beyond that? And then that's hard to do at the end of the day.
Yeah,
but,
you forget.
But you exactly. And so what a great new practice that you have implemented.
It's cool too, because my wife has been commenting to me on how encouraging I've been lately. But I haven't even thought of trying to be more encouraging. It's happening naturally.
It's a byproduct.
You're just noticing things.
I'm just noticing stuff that I don't notice.
You're positive.
And I can't default to noticing them because it's not my default. It's just not a human default.
Yeah.
And there are more positive than negative people. I get that. But no, it's a practice. And the data shows, man, they can measure your aging. They can measure your health. I mean, these are real effects. It's not just your mind changes, it's your health changes, your fitness changes, everything changes.
It's like a decay, if you stay in that negative frame of mind.
100%. Speaking of aging, I gotta tell you, it's just something funny. I know you guys will make fun of me, but I had friends over.
In a positive way.
I had friends over on Sunday, good friends of ours, James and Melissa, love them. And we're hanging out. And my wife does a good job of making photo albums. And you know what she does? She takes these pictures and she gets them printed in these books. They're really cool. You can get them printed.
Shutterfly?
Yeah, that's what it is. Okay. So we had them out, and these are like 2016, 2017. So they're old, it's like, 8 years old type of deal. And so these friends came over and they'd never seen these pictures. And we've only been friends with them for like the last 6 months. So they pick them up and they're looking at it and they're like, oh my God. They're like, is that you? I'm like, yeah, dude. They're like, wow, look at all that hair and look at that baby face. I'm like, screw you guys, man. That's 8 years ago. But and it just made me realize and this is true too. The older you get, the faster you age. I actually looked this up. The aging process, you can measure, it accelerates as you get older. Now, that being said,
probably has a lot to do with the other things we talked about.
But also for anybody in this category where as you're getting older, like, oh my God, if you do the things that we're talking about regularly, it's not fair to compare yourself to 8 years ago. Mm-hmm. And comparison isn't a great thing anyway, but if your ego needs a little stroke like mine did, I'm like, all right, do I know any other 46-year-olds and how am I aging in comparison to them? Pretty good. I'm doing all right.
I blame my gray hair on seeing a ghost. So
Say what?
I said I blame my gray hair on seeing a ghost.
What ghost did you see?
That's a ghost that I told you.
Your favorite.
Yeah, I have a story I love to share when talking about aging because it was so impactful for me in my 20s. And I've shared it once or twice before on the podcast, but since you're on the topic, share it again. Like I thought one of the coolest. I'm like 24ish or 5ish, somewhere around that range. And we've all talked about one of our favorite things about training clients that were much older than us is just the wisdom.
Oh, I love it.
And one of my favorite things about being a personal trainer is I just love meeting all these different people from all different walks and all different age levels and parts of their life. And sometimes I feel like I got more from the training sessions than they did, right? Asking them questions all the time. And I had this boot camp class, right, of like, I don't know, probably 20, mostly women, some men, but mostly women in there. And ages from, I think the youngest I had in there was a teenager or early 20s, all the way up to like 70, the whole range. And I asked one morning, it was just on top of mind for me because I was thinking about aging and getting older and stuff like that. And I was just like, man, I got to be in the best years. Like I'm 25, I'm going to Vegas, I got a couple dollars in my pocket. Like I look good, I feel good. Like this could be peak. Is this peak for me? Like, and I'm asking all them. And the thing that I found that was so unique was that every single one of them would talk about, oh yeah, I remember my 20s or I remember my 30s. And then I'd say like, So I asked them, what was the best period of your life time-wise? And every single one of them, whether I was talking to the 30, the 40, the 50, or the 70-year-old, said, right now.
That's so cool.
And I was like, wow, that's
Now,
interesting.
the one thing they had in common was they're all fit.
Yeah.
Yeah, because if your health goes south, I could see how
Yeah,
that
they were,
might-
I mean, I wouldn't say like
healthy.
fit. Yeah.
They were doing a boot camp.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And so all of them, yeah, exactly. The fact that they could even do a boot camp class
exactly.
speaks to their at least their level of fitness and health, right? They weren't ripped, jacked fitness people.
But they weren't like
but they were
dependent
people
on-
that cared about their health enough to show up to a 6 a.m. class with this young kid and run around a track and do a bunch of shit, right? So it was really fascinated that literally 100 across the board. There was not one person that goes like, oh man, I mean, I missed my 30s. My 30s were great. You know what I'm saying? And 50s not at. But every one of them said all the great things about those periods of time still didn't trump the current moment.
Would you trade? Well, let me ask you guys: would you trade wisdom for going back 10 years, 15 years, 20 years? No, that would suck.
Yeah,
it's what do they say? Youth is wasted on the young. It's because wisdom is so valuable.
Yeah,
it's super valuable, and wisdom gives you peace and calm and all this, and the knowledge that comes. Wisdom is different than knowledge. It's from experience. I used to love training older clients because of that.
Yeah.
Oh, the advice they would give me was always like,
I love that.
Oh, it was the best thing.
I mean, we had a call yesterday. Was that the one that you were in, or not? Yeah, it was the one you were in when we kicked off the longevity group. And Linda, was that her name? 75-year-old.
Oh, I think so. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, just love. I mean, man,
I invited her down so she could listen to.
Yeah, that just lights me up when we get clientele. I love that's probably what we did.